Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Great to have you with us again.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, excited to be here. We've got a big one to unpack today.
We really do. We're diving into the world of 28 years later. This is the latest chapter in that horror franchise that honestly kind of changed everything back in the day.
Oh, absolutely. And, this new one, it's not just another sequel, is it? It feels like something different, a real reinvention, maybe. People are definitely talking about it.
They really are. And it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why does this type of story, the apocalypse, society breaking down, humans pushed to the edge, why does it still grab us so much, even after all this time?
It's a great question. I think maybe it taps into something primal, some collective anxieties we all share, especially now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's kind of our goal today, isn't it? To really get into the layers of this new film. We're going to look at, everything. The visuals, which are apparently quite surprising. The way the infected have changed, the themes that feel very, relevant to right now.
Right, sort of holding up a mirror to things.
Exactly, and figure out where it fits in the whole legacy of modern horror. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, sounds good. Where do we start? Back at the beginning.
Yeah, I think we have to. Let's do a quick rewind to 2002, 28 days later. Danny Boyle, Alex Garland. How did that film, on what was, frankly, a pretty small budget, just completely shake up the horror scene, particularly with the infected?
It's amazing when you think about it, because before 28 Days Later, zombies or zombie-like creatures were mostly, the Romero type, slow, shuffling, relentless.
Yeah, a classic shamblers.
Exactly. And Boyle and Garland just threw that rule book out the window. Their infected weren't dead. They were alive, filled with this uncontrollable, terrifying rage, and they were fast.
Oh, God, the speed. That was horrifying.
It was a total game changer. It wasn't just a physical change. It was psychological, too.
Yeah.
Pure unthinking aggression. It wasn't about a slow decay. It was about sudden explosive violence. It basically redefined what infected meant in movies and, kicked off a whole new subgenre of fast-moving horror.
And it wasn't just what they were, but how they filmed it, right? That whole visual style.
Oh, definitely. The use of those consumer camcorders, genius.
Yeah, it gave it that gritty, almost documentary feel, like you were right there in the middle of the chaos. I remember watching Jim, Cillian Murphy's character, wandering through London and those empty streets. It felt so real, so immediate, almost too real.
And that's the brilliance of it. They turned a limitation, a small budget, around $8 million, into this incredible aesthetic strength. It wasn't polished. It was messy, handheld, raw.
Right.
It made you feel like you were watching something that could actually happen. And it worked. The film made, over $80 million. It proved you didn't need massive budgets for massive impact.
Yeah.
That lo-fi approach just amplified the panic.
And beneath the surface, beneath the running and the scares, it was digging into some pretty heavy themes too, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was all about human nature under extreme pressure, that fear of being totally alone.
Yeah, the isolation.
And how quickly everything we rely on, government, the military, society itself, just evaporates. Poof, gone.
It was terrifying. The idea that the institutions just collapse instantly, and sometimes the other survivors, they were the real monsters.
That's it. It asked that really dark question. What happens when civilization disappears overnight? And the answer wasn't pretty. It showed the paranoia, the cruelty, the awful things people are capable of when the rules are gone. It wasn't just about the infected. It was about the darkness inside us, too. So,
okay, that film was huge, a landmark. Then came the sequel 28 weeks later in 2007. How did that one try to follow up such a phenomenon, especially with Boyle and Garland stepping back a bit?
Yeah, that's always the tricky part, isn't it? Following up something so iconic. 28 weeks later, definitely went bigger. It expanded the world, brought in the U.S. military, NATO trying to reclaim London.
Right. The idea was that the infected had starved to death after 28 weeks.
That was the premise, yeah. Setting up a safe zone in the Isle of Dogs. It offered this glimmer of hope, like maybe it was over. But as you said, the original creative team wasn't fully in charge.
Boyle and Garland were executive producers, but Juan Carlos Fresnadillo directed it. Did that change the feel of it?
I think it did, yeah. It was still intense, still had those terrifyingly fast infected, but it felt maybe a bit more like a traditional action horror film.
Yeah, I can see that. Less of that raw documentary vibe, maybe.
Exactly. Still effective, some incredible sequences in that film, but maybe less experimental. It did introduce some key ideas, though, like the asymptomatic carrier. The virus wasn't really gone.
Oh, yeah, that was a chilling twist. And the ending.
The ending, yeah. Seeing the infected running through Paris, that was a gut punch. It made it clear the nightmare had gone global. Total dread.
Commercially, it did well, right?
Yeah.
But not quite as well as the first one. Made around $65 million compared to the original's 80-something million.
Right. Still a success, but maybe didn't capture the zeitgeist in quite the same way. It broadened the canvas, definitely, but perhaps lost a bit of that unique Boyle Garland magic. It left us wondering, could they ever really recapture that?
And now, here we are. Almost 3 decades later, literally. They're back. Boyle directing, Garland writing. It's not just a sequel, it's an event. And the timing, the actual 28 years passing, it's almost poetic.
It really is incredible, the fact that the real-world time aligns so closely with the title. It feels fated somehow. And this isn't just, cashing in on nostalgia. This is Boyle and Garland returning to their world, asking what they have to say about things now, 20-odd years later. Fans have wanted this for so long.
Definitely. I remember hearing whispers about it 28 months later, years ago.
Yeah, those talks started way back, maybe 2007. Garland even confirmed a script existed around 2015. It felt like one of those projects that might just never happen. And then, boom, 2024, it's confirmed as 28 years later. It feels like the perfect title now.
It really does. And the other huge thing is that this isn't just a one-off. It's the start of a new trilogy. They're planning this out.
Right. That signals a real commitment. They're not just revisiting, they're building something new, a whole saga. It suggests they have a big story to tell, looking at how things have changed over a much longer period. It feels ambitious.
Okay, so let's get into this new chapter. What's the setup? Where does 28 years later find the world, find the UK? Almost 3 decades on. It must be a completely different landscape.
It's a really interesting premise. The film basically asks, what does survival look like after a generation? Set in 2030, so yeah, nearly 30 years after the raid virus hit, the UK is still, devastated. It's under this brutal quarantine. The infection's still out there, a constant threat. And apparently, the rest of the world just gave up on Britain, abandoned it.
Wow, that's bleak. Complete isolation.
Yeah, it creates this intense feeling of being cut off, left behind. What were other countries doing while Britain was locked in this nightmare? It's a chilling thought.
And the story focuses on a small group of survivors living somewhere specific.
Right, they're living on Lindisfarne, which is a real place, a tidal island off the Northumberland coast.
Oh, holy island. Yeah, you can only get there at low tide.
Exactly. So it's this natural fortress. Twice a day, the sea cuts them off. It's a brilliant way to ground their isolation in reality, making their refuge feel both secure and incredibly precarious.
And who are the people we follow?
Well, the heart of it seems to be a family. There's a young boy named Spike, played by Alfie Williams. He's maybe 10 or 12, grown up knowing nothing else but this broken world. He's on this dangerous mission to the mainland with his dad, Jamie. That's Aaron Taylor Johnson.
A mission? What?
They're trying to find something, maybe a cure, for Spike's mother, Isla, played by Jodie Comer. She's sick with some mysterious illness. So it's this really personal, high-stakes quest against this massive, dangerous backdrop.
Okay, so a desperate family journey. And the synopsis hints at what they find on the mainland. Secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only the infected, but other survivors as well. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
And ominous.
Yeah, that phrase really jumps out, doesn't it? It suggests things haven't just stayed static for 28 years. The world has changed, maybe warped. The threats aren't just the rage virus anymore. Maybe human society has twisted into new shapes. Maybe the virus itself has done unexpected things. It hints at a whole new level of complexity. What happens after the immediate collapse when the abnormal becomes the everyday?
So let's talk about the cast pulling us through this, because with this kind of story, you really need to connect with the people, feel their fear.
Absolutely, and the performances seem to be a real highlight. Alfie Williams as Spike, the young boy, is apparently phenomenal. Critics are calling his performance tender, revelatory, the emotional anchor of the whole film. He has to portray this kid losing his innocence in this brutal world, trying to save his mom. That's heavy stuff.
Wow, yeah. And Jodie Comer as the sick mother, Isla. Her suffering is kind of the engine for the whole plot, right?
It seems like it. Her performance is described as intense. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson as the dad, Jamie having to be both a protector and, a fighter in this world. That central trio sounds incredibly strong.
But then there are other characters who sound weirder, like Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, Ralph Fiennes plays a character called Dr. Ian Kelson. He's described as eccentric, memorable, and he's building a temple of
The
bones.
Symbol of Bones. Okay, that's striking. What do you think that's about?
It's hard to say for sure, but the symbolism is powerful, isn't it? Maybe it's about remembering the dead. Or some kind of like post-apocalyptic cult. A weird scientific project. It suggests this deep, maybe morbid fascination with death and what comes after, trying to make sense of the chaos in a really unsettling way.
And Jack O'Connell's character, Sir Jimmy Crystal, leader of the Jimmies. That name alone sounds off.
Right. Sir Jimmy Crystal, it's so theatrical, almost out of place in this gritty world. It immediately flags him and his group, the Jimmies, as something different, not just survivors. It hints at that controversial turn the film takes later on, something unexpected and maybe kind of bizarre.
Okay, now the big question, the Cillian Murphy question. Is Jim back? Is he in this movie?
Okay, yeah. Need to be super clear on this because people are desperate to know. Cillian Murphy is involved. He's an executive producer on 28 Years Later, but he does not act in this film.
Ah, okay, so no Jim this time around.
Not in this one. But T, and this is the exciting part, he's confirmed to be back acting in the next film, the sequel, which is called The Bone Temple.
Okay, so he is coming back. Just not yet.
Exactly. They're saving his return. It's a smart way to keep fans invested and build anticipation for the next part of the trilogy. Jim's story isn't over. It's just on pause for this first installment.
All right, that makes sense. Now let's get into how they're reinventing things. The first film changed the infected. What's new this time? Are they still the same rage sprinters, or has something else happened after 28 years?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit weird. It seems the infected have evolved. Boyle and Garland aren't just repeating themselves. There are reports of totally new variants.
Like what?
Well, for starters, slow infected, which sounds like a callback to classic zombies, right? But maybe with a new twist. Imagine that slow, creeping dread instead of the sudden attack.
Okay. Different kind of fear.
Then there are apparently larger, more intelligent alphas.
Intelligent, like coordinating.
Potentially. Suggests a level of awareness, maybe problem solving, that the original infected didn't have. That changes everything. And then, this is the really out there one, hints of slimy goo monsters.
Wait, what? Slimy goo monsters?
Yeah.
In a 28 Days Later film? That sounds completely different.
I know, right? It's a huge leap. It really broadens the idea of what infection means in this world. It's not just rage anymore. Maybe the virus has mutated in bizarre ways or interacted with the environment, or who knows?
So how does that change things for the survivors if you're facing slow ones, smart ones, and goo monsters?
It totally rewrites the survival playbook. You can't just rely on speed or barricades anymore. You need different tactics for different threats. The slow ones bring that relentless pressure. The alphas bring cunning. And the goo monsters, well, who knows what they bring? Maybe they're hard to kill. Maybe they're contagious in a different way. It forces the characters and us, the audience, to constantly adapt. It feels like a comment on how threats change, become unpredictable, maybe reflecting our own anxieties about new evolving dangers in the real world.
Okay, that's wild. And what about the look of the film? The original had that iconic camcorder style. Have they tried to replicate that or gone for something new?
They've gone for a mix, it sounds like. They haven't abandoned that immediacy altogether. There's still apparently plenty of that inevitable handheld and lo-fi camera work to plunge you into the action, give you that urgent, visceral feeling.
Right, keep that signature feel.
But they've combined it with much more cinematic enquadrature, basically, more traditionally beautiful, sweeping shots, capturing the scale of the ruined landscapes, the desolate cities, so you get both the intimate panic and the epic sense of loss.
And didn't I read something really surprising about the cameras they used? Like, really surprising.
Oh, yeah, this detail is amazing. Apparently, a significant chunk of it was shot on an iPhone 15 Pro Max.
An iPhone.
Yeah.
Seriously. For a major movie like this.
Yep. With special licenses, obviously, but still. It's this fascinating blend of cutting-edge consumer tech and professional filmmaking. It lets them capture that raw, immediate feeling, almost like the original's camcorders, but with incredibly high quality. It's a modern take on that low-budget spirit. And they've deliberately avoided things like, fake VHS glitches or sounds that scream old tech. It's about finding a new way to feel raw and real.
That's incredibly cool. Okay, what about the sound, the music? John Murphy's score for the first two films is legendary, especially that main theme.
Yeah, that theme is iconic, but They've gone in a completely new direction here.
No John Murphy.
No. The score for 28 Years Later is by the Scottish group Young Fathers.
Oh, interesting choice. They have a really unique sound.
Exactly. And the descriptions say their score is hypnotic, electronic, ominous. It's a very deliberate artistic choice to give this new chapter its own distinct sonic identity. It signals a shift, maybe in tone, maybe in theme. It's not just background music. Reports say it really contributes to this constant state of high anxiety.
So visuals, infected, sound, everything feels like a conscious effort to evolve, not just repeat.
Absolutely. They seem to be using every element to create a specific, unsettling atmosphere that feels both familiar and completely new.
Now, you mentioned Lindisfarne, the island community.
Yeah.
And I heard the film takes a bit of a turn towards folk horror
Yeah.
and medieval stuff.
Yeah.
How does that fit into a zombie apocalypse?
It sounds like a really unexpected but maybe brilliant mashup. The idea seems to be exploring what happens to society when it's isolated for so long, cut off from modernity. Within that Lindisfarne community, there are these strong medieval pagan vibes.
Like how?
Details like them having a mead hall for gatherings, using bows and arrows, hints of rituals, it suggests a regression maybe, or a deliberate choice to embrace older ways. It blends the post-apocalyptic setting with the themes you find in folk horror, isolation, strange traditions, the darkness within tight-knit communities.
So it's not just survival, it's about the kind of society that emerges. Maybe something primitive.
Possibly. Or maybe just different. Folk horror often looks at communities turning inward, becoming suspicious of outsiders, clinging to old beliefs that can turn sinister. By bringing that into this world, Boyle and Garland seem to be asking, when everything falls apart, do we revert to something older, more tribal? Is that a strength or a new kind of danger? It definitely makes it more than just a zombie movie.
Okay, so that leads into the deeper themes. These films always had that social commentary layer.
Yeah.
What's 28 Years Later saying, especially coming out now after everything we've been through globally?
Yeah, the timing feels significant, doesn't it? Critics are pointing out how the film really resonates with our post-COVID world. It taps into those anxieties about disease, yes, but also isolation, societal breakdown, maybe even the divisions we saw emerge. It's like it's holding up a mirror to the collective trauma we've all experienced, but through this genre lens.
And that folk horror element you mentioned, the village looking backwards, that sounds like it could be commentary too.
Definitely. The descriptions mention their nostalgia for an idealized past, a rejection of progress, clinging to archaic tradition. It's seen as a kind of socio-political snapshot. Maybe it's exploring that temptation to retreat into simpler, older ways when the present is terrifying. Some have even suggested it touches on that Little England idea, becoming very insular, wary of the outside world. It raises questions about whether closing yourself off is really safety or just a different kind of trap.
It sounds like there's a lot to chew on there, beyond just the scares. But then, the ending. We touched on it, but let's get into it. It's been called shocking, divisive, polarizing. What exactly happens with the Jimmies?
Right, this is where the film apparently takes a massive swing. The climax isn't a final showdown with the infected in the way you might expect. Instead, our main characters encounter this group, the Jimmies, led by Jack O'Connell's Sir Jimmy Crystal, and they're weird, dressed in retro style, creating this bizarre atmosphere that's described as a mix of cult, irony, and threat.
So not just standard post-apocalyptic bad guys.
Apparently not. It sounds much more theatrical, surreal almost. And yeah, reactions were all over the place. Some critics found it brilliant, a stroke of genius. Genial was a word used. Others were just confused, disturbed, felt it came out of nowhere. It seems like one of those endings that completely splits the audience.
A real love it or hate it situation.
Exactly. But importantly, it's not just a random swerve. It's clearly designed to set up the next movie, The Bone Temple. It leaves you with this huge, unsettling question mark, introducing this entirely new faction that presumably will be central to the rest of the trilogy. It's a bold move, maybe sacrificing immediate satisfaction for long-term intrigue. Classic Boyle and Garland, really they're not afraid to challenge the audience.
So given all the new infected, the iPhone filming, the folk horror, the divisive ending, how did the critics ultimately land on it? Was it mostly thumbs up, thumbs down, or somewhere in between?
It was mostly positive, actually, despite the experimental nature. It got an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, 76 on Metacritic. Those are strong numbers.
Yeah, very solid.
Lots of major critics from UK papers like The Telegraph and Times to US outlets like Rolling Stone, The Atlantic, Time, Vanity Fair, EW. They praised the ambition, the visuals, the way it mixed horror with philosophy and genuine surprise. They called it deep, complex, applauded the risks it took.
But not everyone was convinced.
No, definitely not universally loved. Some outlets like Pitchfork pointed to tonal inconsistencies, felt the ending felt tacked on or, redundant. And if you look at audience reactions like on Reddit, it was very polarizing. People called it very different, weird. Some loved that, others clearly didn't.
So it sounds like it succeeded in being challenging, maybe at the cost of alienating some people who wanted something more straightforward.
I think that's fair. But in a way, isn't that interesting? In an era where so many franchises play it safe, here's a film that takes big swings, tries something new, even if it doesn't land perfectly for everyone. And commercially, it did well. Opening weekend brought in $60 million globally, even against big animated films. That suggests there is an audience for this kind of challenging, thought-provoking genre filmmaking. People showed up for it.
Okay, so it made its mark, divided people, but set the stage. What is next? You mentioned the Bone Temple.
Yeah.
What do we know about that?
Well, the exciting thing is it's coming soon. Release date is set for January 16th, 2026. So not a long wait.
Wow, that's quick.
Yeah, they seem to be moving fast on this trilogy. And interestingly, Danny Boyle isn't directing the second one. Nia DaCosta is.
Oh, who directed the Candyman movie?
That's her, yeah, and the Marvels. So a really interesting choice, bringing in a fresh perspective for the middle chapter. But Alex Garland is still writing it, so you'll have that continuity in the story and themes, but maybe a different directorial flavor.
And the Bone Temple, presumably, picks up right after that weird ending, dealing with the Jimmies and that Temple of Bones.
That seems to be the plan, yeah. Delving deeper into that mystery. What is the Bone Temple? Who are the Jimmies? What's their deal? And of course, the huge news for part 2.
Cillian Murphy is back.
Cillian Murphy is officially back as Jim, which is massive. His return will be a huge draw and will really connect this new trilogy back to the original film in a powerful way.
And then there's a third film planned after that, completing the trilogy.
That's the intention. Danny Boyle has said he plans to come back and direct the third one, assuming the Bone Temple does well, which it probably will, especially with Murphy returning. So yeah, it looks like a carefully mapped out 3-film arc, not just sequels, but a real saga exploring this world over decades.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up. 28 years later sounds like much more than just another zombie flick. It's using that framework to explore some really big ideas about society, survival, fear, all wrapped up in this visually distinct, sometimes unsettling, and clearly quite challenging package.
Absolutely. It feels like a film that reflects our times, our anxieties post-pandemic, maybe asks us how we cope with crisis, how we hold on to tradition, or maybe when tradition becomes dangerous. It's horror that makes you think, makes you uncomfortable, and definitely pushes the boundaries of what you expect from the genre. It's bold.
It really sounds it. So we have to ask you, everyone listening, if you've seen 28 years later, what did you think? Were you terrified by the new infected? The slow ones, the alphas, the goo monsters, and that ending. The Jimmies. Genius move or just bizarre? We really want to hear your take. Drop us a comment, send a message, let us know.
Yeah, definitely curious to hear the reactions.
We'll be back soon with another conversation, exploring something else that's got us curious. But until then, are you ready for the Bone Temple? I think I need to prepare myself.